Invictus Games is about to make a return for 2025. And it's something we always look forward to at the Royal Report. It's the regular reminder of the old Prince Harry we know and deep down we love. Remember this?
I can only begin to imagine how challenging the journey of recovery.
Veterans don't write angry letters. They whisper in hospital corridors. They text in group chats. They nod silently when someone finally says what everyone's thinking. So when wounded warriors started calling Prince Harry Captain First Class behind closed doors, the Invictus Games board knew they had minutes, not months, to act. The private jet request wasn't just about money. It was the match that lit a revolution already soaked in gasoline. The board had been waiting for exactly this kind of mistake.
Our veterans, and the focus should be on them for their service to us. Now, this year's Invictus Games opening ceremony in Vancouver is going to be pretty star-studded, and I hope that it strikes the right balance.
Corporate governance operates like a submarine, silent, deep, invisible until it surfaces to strike. Most people never see board meetings where real power moves. They don't witness donor calls at midnight. They miss the careful mathematics of reputation management. The Invictus Games board had been calculating for months, not whether to act against Harry, but when. The private jet request gave them their moment. Not because of the money itself, but because it created unanimous consent among three groups that rarely agree: donors, veterans, and corporate sponsors. When those three align, founders become footnotes.
We always look forward to the Invictus Games, and this year's event is shaping up very well. What can we expect?
Well, hi there, Cara. Well, I think you just said it perfectly yourself. Hopefully it does strike the right balance between grit and glamour.
The business of charity runs on different physics than commerce. Perception literally equals currency. Trust converts to donations. Reputation determines survival. Harry violated all three laws simultaneously. But here's what outsiders don't understand about nonprofit boards. They're typically staffed by corporate executives who've managed hostile takeovers. They know how to remove a CEO without seeming to. They've practiced this dance in Fortune 500 boardrooms. Harry never stood a chance against that level of strategic thinking.
These events are all about the focus of the servicemen and women who have given so much and faced such adversity for their service. So I think when you're looking at Vancouver and Whistler, the two locations that the latest Invictus Games are going to be in, it is going to be star-studded.
The Vancouver 2025 Games faced a funding crisis nobody discussed publicly. Corporate sponsors had been nervous since the Netflix documentaries. Major donors started asking uncomfortable questions after each Sussex headline. The board knew something others didn't. Pledge withdrawals had begun. Not publicly announced, but quietly communicated through lawyers. We're reviewing our commitment. We need to reassess alignment. Corporate speak for, we're out if this continues. Then Harry requested private jet funding. The timing was catastrophic. The board had been negotiating with a major tech sponsor who specifically asked about Sussex-related expenses. The CEO had just assured them all funds went directly to veterans. 24 hours later, Harry's request landed on his desk.
So this might be Prince Harry's Invictus Games. It's his creation, it's his baby, but this is really a relaunch event, a whole week of exposure for the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. Now, we haven't seen...
The CEO faced two choices: approve the jet and lose the sponsor, deny Harry and risk a public founder versus board battle. He chose a third option: strategic humiliation. By denying the request loudly enough for insiders to hear, he sent a message to sponsors: we control this, not him. The Whisper Network did the rest. Within days, every major donor knew the board had drawn a line. More importantly, they knew which side of that line their money belonged on.
For many, many months. She hasn't been out in public. She did do a huge PR blitz last year. It went badly, and she's avoided any exposure when it comes to Spare and when it comes to any promotions for Harry's book and also for his...
What Harry didn't realize was that his request triggered automatic protocols. Every major charity has them now. When a founder requests personal benefits above a certain threshold, it generates reports, legal reviews, compliance checks. Harry's jet request created a paper trail that would haunt him. The documentation went to every board member. It went to key donors for transparency. It went to regulatory bodies for disclosure. By the time Harry understood what was happening, the bureaucratic machinery had already engaged. There was no stopping it.
Appear with Harry, and the plan is to be happy. The plan is to look relaxed And the plan is to get her on the front pages of the newspapers, into the news, onto the website, so we remember who she is again.
Military culture operates on unspoken codes. Respect earned, not inherited. Sacrifice shared, not observed. Service before self, always. Harry broke all three. The nicknames started appearing in veteran WhatsApp groups. Captain First Class was kind compared to others. One amputee posted a photo of his prosthetic leg with the caption, "This cost less than his jet fuel." It got 3,000 reactions in an hour. Another veteran calculated how many therapy dogs could be trained with one private flight's cost. The math went viral in military forums, but the real damage happened in private conversations between veterans and their families. These weren't public complaints. They were kitchen table conversations about betrayal.
This is his element, okay? When he was a member of the royal family and he was a working royal, he was doing this. He was playing with the youngsters. He was having fun. He was waving. He knew the cameras were there and he was enjoying himself. This time at the Invictus Games in Dusseldorf here, Meghan has joined him.
The board monitored this sentiment through informal channels. Board members had friends who served. Those friends had opinions. Those opinions were unanimous. The temperature check revealed something worse than anger: contempt. Veterans weren't just upset about the money. They felt insulted by the assumption that their cause existed to fund royal comfort. One board member, a former serviceman himself, reportedly said, "We've lost limbs, not minds. We see what's happening here." Meanwhile, Meghan's influence became the unspoken variable. Sources suggested she'd been instrumental in the jet request. The board didn't care about blame. They cared about patterns. And the pattern was clear. Every controversy followed the same trajectory: request for special treatment, public backlash, damage control. Repeat. The board started documenting everything, not for lawsuits, but for leverage. Every unusual request, every demand for exceptions, every instance where veteran needs were secondary to Sussex comfort. The file grew thick. Veterans started organizing their own responses, not protests, but alternatives. Grassroots support groups that explicitly excluded celebrity involvement. Local games that celebrated athletes without cameras. They were building a parallel structure that didn't need Harry's validation. The board watched this with interest. If veterans were creating alternatives, what did that say about the main organization's necessity? Corporate sponsors operate like schools of fish. When one turns, they all turn. The Invictus Games had 17 major sponsors in 2024. By the time Harry's jet request leaked, 3 had already initiated review processes. That's corporate code for exit planning. The board's finance committee ran scenarios. Losing one sponsor meant cutting athlete support programs. Losing 3 meant canceling venues. Losing 5 meant no games at all. The mathematics of charity are brutal. Every dollar has a face. Every budget line represents someone's recovery. The private jet Harry wanted could fund adaptive sports equipment for 40 veterans. It could pay for psychological support for 20 families. It could cover transportation for every athlete from developing nations. The CEO made these calculations public, but strategically. He didn't name Harry. He simply released a financial transparency report showing exactly where every dollar went. Veterans programs, 78%. Administrative costs, 15%. Marketing and awareness, 7%. The line item for founder travel and accommodation was deliberately left at 0. The message was clear without being stated. The donors noticed. More importantly, the veterans noticed. Social media exploded with side-by-side comparisons. Harry's known net worth versus veteran funding needs. The contrast was devastating. One particularly viral post showed a Wounded Warriors crowdfunding page for a wheelchair-accessible van next to estimated costs of private jet travel. The veteran needed $30,000. The jet cost $50,000 per flight. The optics were unsurvivable. But the board's masterstroke came through selective transparency. They released donor communications with identifying information redacted, concerned about resource allocation, questioning founder expenses, need assurance funds reach veterans. Each quote was a dagger. The board wasn't attacking Harry. They were simply sharing stakeholder feedback. The climate change angle provided unexpected ammunition. Environmental sponsors had specific carbon offset requirements. Private jets violated every metric. The board had someone calculate the carbon footprint of Harry's requested travel. It equaled the annual emissions of 50 average families. For an organization promoting sustainability, the hypocrisy was mathematically quantifiable. Environmental groups started questioning their association with Invictus. The board had to choose green money or Harry's comfort. The choice was obvious. The board's next move was surgical. They didn't announce Harry's reduced role. They simply restructured the organization chart. New committees were formed: Athlete Advisory Board, Veteran Voice Council, Donor Transparency Panel. Harry wasn't excluded, he simply wasn't included. His title remained, but his function evaporated. Like a constitutional monarchy, he became ceremonial. The real power shifted to committees he didn't control. The genius was in the framing. This wasn't about Harry. This was about evolutionary governance and stakeholder representation. Business school terms that meant one thing: the founder no longer drives the bus. He's barely a passenger. The Vancouver Games planning showed this new reality. Harry's team submitted suggestions. The committees reviewed them. Most were politely declined, not rejected, just incompatible with current strategic priorities. Corporate passive aggression at its finest. When Harry proposed opening ceremony elements, the Athlete Advisory Board countered with veteran-designed alternatives. When he suggested media strategies, the Veteran Voice Council presented research showing athletes wanted less celebrity focus. Every Harry initiative met a committee counter-proposal: death by democracy. Meghan's planned appearance at Vancouver became another negotiation. The board didn't ban her. They simply required all appearances to be athlete-focused. No red carpets, no exclusive events, no separate media coverage. If she wanted to attend, she'd sit with other supporters. The democratization of access sent a clear message. Celebrity was no longer currency here. The board went further. They created appearance guidelines for all patrons and supporters. Maximum speaking time, 2 minutes. Required content, veteran achievements only. Prohibited topics, personal projects, other charities, commercial ventures. The rules were universal but obviously targeted. Financial controls tightened like a noose. Every expense over $5,000 required committee approval. Travel required justification documents. Accommodation needed comparative quotes. The bureaucracy was suffocating but defensible. The board was protecting donor trust and ensuring fiscal responsibility. Harry couldn't complain without seeming entitled. He was trapped in a cage of reasonable requirements. The ripple effects reached other charities. Sentabalo, Harry's African charity, faced similar donor questions. Africa Park saw increased scrutiny. The charitable sector has its own whisper network. When one organization takes action, others watch and learn. The message spreading through nonprofit boardrooms was revolutionary. Founders aren't untouchable. If Invictus could contain Harry, any board could contain any founder. The precedent was set. The playbook was written. First, wait for a clear violation of values. Second, respond decisively but professionally. Third, restructure governance to prevent recurrence. Fourth, let the founder keep their title while removing their power. It's corporate Aikido. Use their weight against them. Other celebrity charities took notice. Boards started reviewing founder privileges. Expense policies were tightened. Governance structures were examined. Harry's jet request had triggered a sector-wide audit of founder entitlement. The veterans, meanwhile, were already moving on. New heroes emerged. Athletes whose stories didn't need royal validation. The games were returning to their roots. Wounded warriors inspiring through action, not aristocrats appearing for photo opportunities. The media strategy shifted without announcement. Press releases stopped mentioning Harry first. Athlete stories led every communication. Photography guidelines changed. Veterans in the foreground, officials in the background. The visual narrative was being rewritten frame by frame. Harry was being edited out of his own story, one image at a time. Broadcasting rights negotiations revealed the new reality. Networks wanted athlete access, not royal interviews. They wanted training footage, not palace ceremonies. The market had spoken. Warriors sell better than princes. The board used this leverage brilliantly. They promised networks unprecedented athlete access if coverage focused on competition, not celebrity. Every organization faces this moment, the founder's vision versus the mission's evolution. Usually it happens quietly, a resignation for personal reasons, a transition to advisory roles, a graceful fade to history. Harry's situation was different. He forced a public reckoning. The board had to choose between one man's ego and thousands of veterans' needs. They chose correctly, but the method matters more than the outcome. They didn't destroy him. They simply made him irrelevant. That's the ultimate corporate execution. Not firing someone, but organizing around them until they're standing alone in an empty room with a fancy title. The psychology of founder removal is fascinating. You can't kill a myth directly, You have to let it starve. The board understood this. Every decision removed a little more oxygen from Harry's influence. Every committee diluted his voice. Every policy restricted his movement. It was organizational suffocation, slow and steady. The board knew Harry couldn't complain publicly without seeming petty. He couldn't fight back without proving his critics right. He couldn't leave without abandoning his only remaining achievement. They had him cornered with kindness, strangled by structure. The Invictus Games will thrive. They've proven they're bigger than their founder. The veterans never needed Harry. Harry needed them. And now everyone knows it. The question isn't whether Harry will appear at Vancouver 2025. It's whether anyone will notice if he doesn't. When an organization's immune system rejects its creator, it's not tragedy, it's evolution. The Invictus Games just evolved beyond Prince Harry. The veterans are better for it. The donors are reassured by it. And Harry? He's about to learn what every deposed founder discovers. The monument you build doesn't need you to stand. Sometimes the greatest service a founder can provide is becoming unnecessary. Harry's approaching that moment. The only question is whether he'll recognize it before everyone else stops pretending he matters.